that's weird.
Good afternoon.
Oh,
I'm Farouk Garamani, Associate Vice President for Research, Innovation, and Sponsored Programs at NJECC. NJECC is a research and education network, a technology solutions provider to higher ed, government, K-12, and healthcare in New Jersey. It is my pleasure to be moderating the distinguished panel addressing this timely topic of engaging more women in academic innovation and the important role of the gatekeepers in the innovation ecosystem. And we refer to the gatekeepers, we're referring to institutional leaders, the technology transfer offices, the VC firms, the investment community, that all make up the innovation ecosystem. The format will be, we'll have some introductions, and then after that, we're going to do a presentation based on a recent publication, Engaging More Women in Academic Innovation, that was through the Autumn Weisick Women Inventors SIG group, and then panel discussion and Q&A. So I'd like to start with introducing Wayne Embray, who is the Executive Vice President, Investments and Ventures Development at Rev1 Ventures. Wayne is an experienced seed stage investor with a track record of fueling startups with guidance and venture capital. He's been involved in about 300 investments, 1/3 of which are spinouts from universities, hospitals, and corporations, and taken more than 60 businesses through exits. Throughout his career, he has maintained his passion and enthusiasm for helping entrepreneurs change the world. Wayne has a BS in Natural Sciences from Western Oregon and an MS in Urban Planning from the University of Oregon. And I'm going in alphabetical order. Kimberly Foster is the Dean of Tulane University School of Science and Engineering. She received her Bachelor of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering from Michigan Technological University in 1994. She then studied theoretical and applied mechanics at Cornell University, receiving a PhD in 1999. Following her PhD, she started at UC Santa Barbara as an assistant professor, moved to status of associate professor and full professor by 2008. She, during that period, she also served as vice chair of Mechanical Engineering Department and chair from 2008 to 2013. She also co-chaired the UCSB's BRAIN Initiative, and she has over 175 refereed publications in journals, including Nature and PNAS. Her research has been featured on TV shows, NPR in Canada, and many international publications. She has mentored 24 students to completion of PhDs. Her interdisciplinary research has been funded by NSF, Army, AFOSR, DARPA, as well as the Keck Foundation. She is an elected fellow of the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, is founding editorial board of Sensors, Letters Journal, and on the editorial board of Microelectronic Engineering Journal. She also serves on the executive board of the Transductor Research Foundation. Kimberly is also a creative inventor and holds 12 U.S. patents. Elizabeth Doherty, I'm sorry, I didn't go in alphabetical order, is the Eastern Region Outreach Director for the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, USPTO. In this role, she carries out the strategic direction of the Undersecretary of Commerce for Intellectual Property and Director of the USPTO, and is responsible for leading the USPTO's East Coast stakeholder engagement. Ms. Doherty has more than 30 years of experience working at the USPTO. She served as the Senior Advisor to the Undersecretary of Commerce for Intellectual Property and Director of the USPTO. She began her career at the USPTO as a patent examiner after graduating from the Catholic University of America with a bachelor's degree in physics. While a patent examiner, Elizabeth went on to obtain her JD degree from the Columbus School of Law at the Catholic University of America and served as a senior legal advisor in the Office of Patent Legal Administration. Elizabeth is active in many organizations, including the American Bar Association, the American Intellectual Property Law Association, Women in Science and Engineering, the Patent and Trademark Office Society, Federally Employed Women, and the Network of Executive Women, to name a few. And Joanne Wong is the 2022 chair of IEEE Entrepreneurship, connecting tech entrepreneurs to an engineering-driven global innovation network. Top 2022 IEEE entrepreneurship initiatives are the creation of a Women Tech Entrepreneur Support Network and the development of resources for academic research entrepreneurs and for the deep tech entrepreneurs. Joanne is general partner of Reds Capital, a California-based VC firm investing in global early-stage IT startups. She has worked with IBM, HP, SAP, Cisco in multiple technical, market development, and strategic investments positions. Joanne is a co-founder and CEO of a health data research startup, providing a multimodal data management platform for biomedical researchers. She was the executive director of a healthcare charity startup, providing free green access to high-performance computational resources for cancer researchers. Joanne is a mentor advisor to multiple startups and has served on several boards, including the Government of Canada ICT Sector Council, setting research and advising ICT policy for the country. So this is an amazing group of panelists. We'll start with each providing your background as far as your experience in the work that you do, as well as the passion for advancing opportunities for youth innovators.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for that very kind introduction. And it is such an honor and a pleasure to be here today and to be on such an esteemed panel. As introduced, my name is Elizabeth Doherty. I'm a 31-year veteran of the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. At the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, to use the old phrase, I have worn many hats. But I think the hat that I have worn the longest and that I love the most is what I do now and what I've done for the latter part of my career, and that's demystifying the process, providing education, information about the role and importance of intellectual property, and empowering and incentivizing people to join the invention, entrepreneurship, and innovation ecosystem. And that's part of the conversation we're having here today. Myself, my agency, we are strongly committed to diversifying those worlds. Because as my past director, who many of you may have had the opportunity to meet, Director Andre Iancu, was known to say, we are competing against the rest of the world with 4 fingers and 1 hand tied behind our back. The only way that we are going to solve the world's greatest challenges is to have all people participating. And that's diversity of ethnicities, geography, gender. We need all people to see themselves as able to participate. So it's my pleasure on behalf of the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office to share information about our Council for Inclusive Innovation, many of the initiatives and programs that we've stood up under the current director, as well as ongoing programs where we're, again, working to incentivize, empower, and to have all individuals see themselves as able to participate. So thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Thanks. That's so exciting. It's great to hear that the government is
committed to inclusivity in inventions and in inspiring creativity in everyone. As a dean of science and engineering at Tulane, I am very passionate about this. We're standing up a Tulane Innovation Institute now with about a $20 million spend over the next 5 years to put things in place to really allow people to reach their innovative potential. And one of the things that made a huge impact on me is I was growing up as a child in northern Michigan. I became an engineer because my parents said, become an engineer. You're good at math and science, and you'll get a good job. Meaning you won't be in my house after you're 18. And that's true, but I became, innovation is not something that you're born with, it's something that you can learn. And that's a point that I think sometimes we miss, and that's an opportunity that we have as a community to put things into place. I became an innovator when I was a graduate student, and I became an innovator because I had an innovative advisor. And I still remember the moment that I sat in my advisor's office, my PhD advisor, who was a huge mentor of mine. He passed away this past year, and it was really hard on me. But he was a successful entrepreneur who then went back to become a professor. And he was very busy, and he always had a lot going on, but he would always make time for us. And I still remember the time I sat in his office, and he said, Kimberly, that's an invention. He said, the patent attorney will call you later today. And he did, and we wrote the patent. And that was a long time ago, so I felt like Cornell was kind of on the leading edge of innovation and entrepreneurship for graduate students. And a lot of that technology got licensed to a company that he started with some of his former students and outside leadership as well, because as you know, professors do not make the best CEOs. Coming from a professor who's not a CEO, my husband is the true CEO type in the family. But that was really, it made a huge impact on me, and it formed my path forward as an engineer inventor, an educator and mentor. And those things all come together. So I think that this is something that we can engage more people by putting things in place so that people learn that they can be innovative. And I've continued that throughout my career. Outside of academics, I'm married to a serial entrepreneur, and we have joint patents together. It's really fun to be able to talk science. We co-invented a cell sorting technology together. The first patent for it, the first thing actually was on a napkin on a United Airlines flight home from a conference. And he successfully spun that out into a company, which was then acquired by a large biotech company. So I've seen the whole cycle from different angles, and the one thing that I can say that changed my trajectory was this moment in my advisor's office where he said, that's an invention. And then from that point on, I thought about things, is that an invention? And then I trained my students that way. Is that an invention? And then pretty soon, your mindset is totally different. It's about impact, and it's about how you can change the world. So I'm super excited to be in this very diverse and distinguished panel. Thanks.
So I have to ask, do you still have the napkin?
It got lost in our last move.
Right, along with other things. It's a real pleasure to be here. And this is a roadshow that Kimberly and I and Laura got to take together. We were on an autumn panel earlier this year, and talking about very similar topics. And so this is just fun, and I'm just really honored to be here. Just a little bit about Rev1 Ventures. Rev1 is a venture development organization, and our mission statement is we help entrepreneurs build great companies. The two operative words there are help. We don't do it, we help. And then the second word is great. And the great is a focus on building a fundamentally sound enterprise. not something that's designed to be flipped in 6 months or a couple of years, but a business that's sustainable and will last over time. And so our focus has always been on how do you start from the very beginning, the basics, build that up using the resources that we bring to those relationships, and those resources are the skills and the experience of the individuals working in Rev 1 and the mentors and advisors that we surround ourselves with. It's the space that we have available in which the companies can grow and expand. It's the capital that we have available to invest beginning at the concept stage. We have strategic partnerships with Ohio State University, Nationwide Children's Hospital, and multiple corporations around the region in Ohio that have been incredibly important in building an entrepreneurial ecosystem and being able to create mechanisms where we can take nascent technologies out of the research enterprise, assemble a management team around those, build it into a company that then gets a product developed and into the marketplace. And so we have very specific approaches that we take to that. And one of the things that I'm proud of over my career is a disproportionate percentage of the opportunities that we've pursued with my current and former partners have been technology that was founded by women PIs or PIs of color and underserved gender, race, ethnicity. And because when we started in the business, we didn't care. From our perspective, was what's the best opportunity? And the thing I think is so important about developing the sciences and developing them into opportunities that, as Kimberly said, make the world a better place, is it's not a zero-sum game. This is truly the ability to create new inventions, new ideas, new wealth, and wealth in a positive sense, not wealth in the sense that many think of it in terms of being something that can be destructive. This is very, very constructive wealth. And then I think the last thing I wanted to leave with you in this segment is there's been a word that's been used a couple of times today that I think is very, very important to the work that we're all doing, and that's intentionality. So being intentional about this is absolutely necessary. Having policies and procedures is all good, but if there isn't intent behind it, then it doesn't matter. So those are the things that I think make organizations and meetings like this really important, is it brings out that essence of intention.
Thank you very much again for the invitation to be part of this great esteemed panel. And probably my background is a bit different than my esteemed panelists here, is that less from an academic background. Yes, I have a degree in engineering, but I followed the corporate route. And along that journey along there, I ended up working with a lot of promoting engineering and engineering innovation, or getting youth engaged in engineering. Because not to, especially if I speak on behalf of IEEE, there's not enough young girls going into engineering programs. And from there, the lack of young women going into engineering programs also prevents us of having more women engage in academic innovation. So it starts at the youth level. And just from locally, I'm based in Montreal, even though I work for a VC firm in California, I've been working with 20 years in a local, as a volunteer with the local universities and corporations in Montreal of promoting engineering and physical sciences for young girls that are in grade 8 to 9 before they make that decision to decide what science and math programs they are choosing in their senior years in high school. So that's very critical to get the youth engaged so that we do have a mass population of women that are in the academic fields, especially in engineering. On the other note, let's say within, as chair of IEEE Entrepreneurship, one of our things that we're looking at is how do we engage with more, since the membership of IEEE are academic researchers, how do we engage with more women academic researchers so that if they're inspiring and thinking about being an entrepreneur, but they lack the resources, because not all universities and colleges have great programs like NJECC or in Ohio or in Rutgers, and the membership here of NJECC of New Jersey infrastructure here is not everyone has access. So how do we provide those academic researchers, if they want to, especially women, of going down the entrepreneurship path, we provide those services, not replicating what's already in the system, of providing them help of services and programs to help them bring their research to the next level if they want to commercialize. Some of the things that have been brought up, and this came from women entrepreneurs, is to have women entrepreneurs support network, and is provided, and we created a program, it's on Slack, and it's available to all women entrepreneurs aspiring and existing women entrepreneurs that you can connect with entrepreneurs around the world. And from a virtual perspective, but if you want to meet locally, that is possible also. So that's a program we just started, and we're trying to figure out how to get more women engaged on the academic innovation side, and also how do we get more women investors engaged? Because one of the things that entrepreneurs always come up to is say, how do you get access to investors? Not everybody lives in New York City, in Silicon Valley, or Boston, some of those big hotspots for investors. What happens when you're in the Midwest? I think you face some of those challenges. What happens if you're whether you're in certain parts of the States or certain parts of the world? How do you access these global investors? And a lot of this comes from networking. And unfortunately, within the VC community, the majority of the VC community are male. And you have to network with them, but if you don't know who they are, how do you network? It's a vicious circle. So we're trying to figure out how to build those programs so that women entrepreneurs can have access to that. We're still our challenge. We're trying to figure that model out. So any ideas that you come up with, we welcome it. Because if we can build it out within the IEEE ecosystem and make it available to all, you don't have to be an IEEE member to have access to that. That's not our objective. Our objective is really to increase women innovators and they have access to the right resources.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. And as everyone's talking about, we have a presentation, but I'm starting to think maybe we should go straight into the panel, but I will go real quickly through this presentation just to provide some background information on the research that was done by the Women Inventors, the Association of University Technology Manager Women Inventors Committee. So we're facing intense global competition from countries around the world in key technology areas, whether it be advanced manufacturing or advanced wireless, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, biotechnology. Across the entire spectrum of technology areas is the case that countries are investing heavily to ensure leadership, to ensure progress that can ultimately contribute to societal and economic growth. And here in the US, there's a lot of federal investment that continues to be concentrated across cities and universities across the US. And there's an opportunity for us to harness the diversity of that talent that exists across the country. And finally, the third reason why this is a defining moment is socioeconomic challenges that we're facing. From addressing the impact of climate change to providing equitable access to education, healthcare, broadband capability, to improving infrastructure, we face momentous challenges. And at the same time, our research and innovation enterprise is going through some historic changes. The pace of discovery is greatly accelerated across all of the fields of science and engineering and the humanities over the last decade as a result of, as was mentioned earlier today, a result of access to unprecedented amounts of data and advanced technologies. And these technological advancements are happening at an exponential pace and are reshaping our economic landscape. Our most pressing challenges are interconnected, they're complex processes, and more than ever they require innovative, integrative, and multidisciplinary approaches. and collaboration and partnerships are at the core of addressing these challenges. So this particular slide and Newsweek article cover, it's a depiction of society's perception of innovation, patents, and entrepreneurship. This is a narrative that needs to be changed. In reality, women are responsible for critical technologies that continue to influence U.S. economic growth and improve the quality of life, as are other underrepresented groups. And so we need to change that perception. Innovation is a hallmark of American culture, and universities are a major innovation ecosystem, as is evident from the investments that are made. This is based on the Association of University Technology Managers 2020 survey that is done on an annual basis. So it's encouraging to see that women now make up the majority of college graduates at 55% and are entering academia at the same rate as men. However, they make up only 38% of tenured faculty positions. Women, whether in academia or corporate world, are not participating in patenting. And I'm sure that Elizabeth will have more information on that at the same rate as their male colleagues. According to USPTO, this is a 2020 report, only 20% of patents have a woman listed as an inventor, and only 12% of inventors are women. Similar statistics with the World Intellectual Property Organization. The status of women in academic-based startup companies presents for another opportunity area for improvement. According to Osage University Partners, out of 6,000 academic-based companies that they were tracking in 2020, only 11% had a female founder or co-founder. And of the $164 billion invested in 2020 into over 10,000 companies, less than 3% were invested in women-led startups. So recognizing the disparities that we just mentioned, a group of colleagues got together at an autumn meeting in 2013 and formed the Autumn Women Inventors SIG. And through that group, there have been many contributions, including several publications. And the one that we're going to review some of the results of is 2020. The group conducted a customer discovery with academic women innovators with two goals: to understand the factors that encourage and discourage academic women's participation in technology commercialization, and to better understand the barriers that impede female participation so that we can address and reduce these barriers. And we recognize there are many groups that are underrepresented. However, at the current time, there's a better handle on gender data that's available, and we can hopefully take the learnings from this and inform strategies that can be helpful for all underrepresented groups as well. So we were thrilled to get responses from 168 academic women inventors out of 256. And out of the group, 87% were currently actively involved in the commercialization process. This slide provides information about their position at first invention. And 50% of the respondents had an invention disclosure that was licensed. We also wanted to understand what motivated women to engage. We listed 11 reasons for potentially engaging and asked them to rank from 1 to 5 how important these factors were in influencing their decision to engage. Almost all of the respondents indicated the major reason for engaging was their desire to see their research applied in the real world. A significant majority rated following university policies obligating them to disclose was an important factor. Over half were motivated to participate to explore additional resources for research and development funding. And approximately half were motivated to find industry connections and potential outside collaborations. We had also listed availability of resources, and based on responses, availability of training or IP and commercialization processes, access to mentors, gap funding, communities, and network of innovators were very important. Some of the themes that emerged from open responses included, most important was training, information and resources, mentors, role models, networking opportunities, and people guiding potential innovators through the commercialization process. We also wanted to ask, for just open comments, and one of the things that were shared was interactions with the technology transfer offices were very important, and lack of time and conflicting priorities had a big impact, and funding to conduct research and development, as well as discrimination and bias. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to the panelists to comment on your reactions, as well as what do you see as some barriers for entry?
I can start. I think one of the things that people sometimes worry about in tech transfer in academia is the pull between progressing through your academic career and doing commercialization. And I think that sometimes people, in most career tracks, if you look at women take conservative paths through career tracks. So if you look at progression through academia, women tend to progress pretty standard through the process. And women into academic administrator roles, people tend to be a dean, an associate dean, then a dean, then a provost, then a president. The well-trodden paths tend to be more accessible earlier. And so when you're talking as a dean, I find it really important to look at tenure and promotion practices and make sure that you put things into place and that people understand that entrepreneurship and inventions and patents are valued. And this goes back to Wayne's comment about intentionality. This survey showed that women want to make a difference. Women want to change the world. They want to see their technology applied, and that has to be valued in the academic process. And so in academia, in terms of bureaucracy and processes, tends to move at a pretty glacial pace. And so there are things that we can do, like for example, as a dean, I run promotion and tenure for 11 departments, a couple hundred faculty. I can make sure that P&T committee every year has a personal meeting where we talk about all that, so that it's clear and they can ask questions. Well, what does a patent mean? How do you value a patent? And we talk about that, and we agree on things. I'm not dictating how they process things. I mean, I believe in the academic process and faculty governance very strongly. But we talk about what that means, and we make sure that people from different backgrounds understand that as an engineer, a patent is a creative discovery. And so it should be included in creative discovery, which is the same category that you include research, papers, and other creative products. And you can change the perception and how things are valued and enable people to do both. There are also lots of generous leave procedures. There are ways to get years added onto your tenure clock. It's tough for assistant professors to start companies. It is, because there's a lot of constraints on their time. But that doesn't mean that at universities we shouldn't feel compelled to make sure that we put processes in place that make it possible. If somebody invents something really timely and really exciting, and they need to have a year added to their tenure clock so that they can go off and go all in to make this work, we should make that happen. So I do think the universities play a big role in helping people enable their innovation, besides just training them to be innovative, which I think The other cool thing is if universities have those processes in place and they are vocal about them, they will attract more innovative faculty members, which I would argue kind of completes the circle. And that continues to train graduate students to be innovative and trains undergraduates to be innovative and share their stories when they teach their classes. So I do think that having processes in place, I mean, it's hard to put processes in place, and it's not always the most interesting work, but it can really make a difference.
Thank you.
I think some of the additional value of this survey, and I'm so very grateful that it was conducted, was that it continues the drumbeat. The drumbeat that has been led by organizations like Autumn, like the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, industry partners, the Intellectual Property Owners Association. Because part of our solving this issue of whether we're focused on getting more girls and women in STEM, or then taking them to the next level to be inventors and innovators, is first and foremost awareness. When we first started having these conversations, I think people were shocked, and people are still shocked today to see some of those statistics that were shared in the slide set. That only 21% of patents have a named female inventor. That the women inventor rate, which reflects individual inventors, not repeat inventors, but one inventors, is only 13% out of all of the inventors. It is shocking. But until that's brought into the awareness, people can't jump to do something about it. And so much of it does come down very simply to access. And that's access at so many different levels, and we've touched on some and all of it. Access to funding, access to information, access to education, access to being included, access to being invited to be included. We have to change the playing field, and it's not an easy game to change the playing field, because there are so many different factors at play. There are so many rules to the game. But studies like this go so very, very far in keeping the conversation in the public's conscious, in industry's conscious, in university, and even for our young people that are coming up now in these communities. To start having these conversations early such that, young people see themselves as able to participate. So I'm very thankful that this information, this survey, has added to the repository of really great work that's being done to help us take those next and necessary steps.
So one of the pioneers on the training and information side, I'm going to give a shout out to is Mary Uhas, who's now emeritus at Ohio State. She was the co-PI for the advance grant at OSU. And one of the things that she realized very quickly is that one of the questions she was getting from the women faculty was, well, I just don't really understand this commercialization process. So she created a program called Reach for Commercialization, which recruited 20 faculty every other year to go through a education program for commercialization. And when I met Mary, my first question is, so why are you doing this every other year? I said, well, we don't have the money to do it every year. I said, so the university isn't giving you the money? I said, no. I said, okay, then we'll give you the money. And oh, by the way, we want you to include doctoral candidates and postdocs. And she gladly did that. And so that began pushing the whole information aspect of commercialization into the next generation, earlier than it was going to happen otherwise. And we started seeing a direct effect from that in terms of disclosures and the quality of the disclosures that were coming from the women faculty. And then, something else that came out of that in our observation was, I'm sure a lot of you are seeing as well, which is, well, what's my career path going to be once I finish my PhD, or my master's? Am I going to slog it out with 4 postdocs and see how that goes? So, Rev 1, we created a fellowship program that's focused on masters and later academic graduates that will pay for them to spend a year in a technology company that's in their domain. So that will give them a direct commercial experience to see if that's something they want to do. We've tried to make sure that it's, they're not being paid any less than they would as a postdoc. So yes, it is cheap labor. But we make the companies pay for half of it, and then we pay for the other half. And that, so far, that's been a very well-received program.
So just adding on to what you talked about within IEEE entrepreneurships, one of the things we're trying to do is, like you said, about networking opportunities. And what we try to do is that when we have the IEEE conferences around the world, is that we like to have an investor session, so that the aspiring entrepreneurs, especially what we've noticed in IEEE events, that a lot of them are PhD students and postdoc students that are attending these events because they're speaking on behalf, publishing their paper, and they attend these sessions because they want to know more what is that commercialization process. So it gives them other avenues instead of the tenure track. And I think today's youth, they're realizing there's less tenure tracks, and you got to look at other opportunities. And so within the IEEE community is we have these sessions built in as much as each of these technical societies, if they want that, we have as part of it. And also we offer mentorship programs where we just started this out, where at least we give 1 hour free mentorship. We also signed up a program with Neon Vests, and they're a startup, and they connect founders with investors. And the purpose of that is not for investing money into your startup, but more so that you hear what you're doing, not from a pitch deck perspective, but overall on your company. How do I improve that so that I could possibly get funding possibilities? Other things that we look at is trying to get programs and services from that these aspiring entrepreneurs and the postdoc students especially, of what they can have out there. So we're always looking at another one we posted this today is SlideBeam. And SlideBeam offer, and you get it free on YouTube. And it's 15-minute snippets on your finances, your pitch deck, what's happening in the marketplace. But what SlideBeam is also built, and they're a startup also, is built up how to work with entrepreneurs, founders, in building up their company and going for funding. How do you pitch deck and everything of that sort? So they provide aside from their free videos type of thing.
Thank you. So we're going to open it up to questions from all of you.
I'm going to attempt to yell. It's okay. I am a Jersey girl. I would have just shouted if I had to. Hi everyone, my name is Michelle. I am the leader of a wage equality platform called Disrupt the Gap. Normally I teach adults and employers about equal pay. I have an opportunity coming up to collaborate with Girl Scouts on some programming for girls in high school here in New Jersey. As I think about that content, I think about what are the messages that they need to hear in anticipation for entering the workforce. And in regards to wage equality, think about those internal shifts about self-worth, confidence, and more. So my question for you is, do you have any pearls that you would want imparted on that next generation, either from your career perspective or from if it was a parent, again, just preparing them for success as they move forward?
All right, I'm thinking on it now, but I think that one thing I would take away is that I've gained a tremendous amount throughout my career from having strong mentors, and I think you should look for mentors wherever you can find them, including, and I've had male mentors, female mentors. You look everywhere, because you only learn from others' experience. We learn a lot from others' experience, and so I would say look for mentors, friends, mentors, people who show interest in you. You never know when the circle will come back around, and I think that's a really, so that's something important that you can start anytime.
My suggestion or recommendation would be to not be afraid of failure. The world's greatest inventors are the greatest example of how failure, time and time again, whether we look at Edison, whether we look at Stephanie Quallen, their opportunities to fail led them to new and greater and better things. I think sometimes, particularly we as women, are very risk averse, and part of that captures a fear of failure. But we have to know that it's okay. And that's how we figure out sometimes what it is we don't want to do, things that we're not good at doing. But it also helps us narrow in and focus where our best talents are. I will note that the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office does have a Girl Scout IP patch, which we'd love to come out into the community and do with Girl Scouts of all ages.
Thank you. We're going to be chatting for you. Thank you.
Yeah, I just had one comment and sort of almost an anecdotal observation is that at least in the life sciences where most of my research has been, the number of graduate students that are female has vastly outnumbered the number of male graduate students. And I'm wondering whether, I worry a little bit when we think about the data, that an invention is a very terminal career or something that's a well-established career path. And I'm wondering if a holistic view of sort of looking from training to career development would actually help us understand where do women fall out of the pipeline. Because I think it's a problem systematically. And now, in the life sciences, that's one field. I don't know if engineering is sort of different, but I've noticed this observation, and I think it'd be, if we gathered such data and looked at it very systematically, I think that would actually be potentially very instructive.
Maybe a anecdotal observation and anecdotal data. It's not that we're losing a lot of women in terms of the commercialization process. We're losing them from science completely. These are only a couple of examples, but a physician that I know well had lunch with her earlier in the year, and she just said, "I'm done. I'm done with the academy. I just, the things that we're being asked to do are inconsistent with both our clinical work as well as our research work, and I just find it completely counterproductive to the way I want to live." And she wasn't the only one. The woman that groomed our dog has a PhD from the University of Pennsylvania and a patent in gene therapy, and she's a dog groomer because that's where she feels rewarded. And my partners and I, we've invested in over half a dozen gene therapy companies. Most of them have been quite successful. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'd love to have her in one of these companies, but that's not where she wants to be right now in her life. So the issue that we're seeing repeatedly, and this is a conversation I've had frequently with Mary Uhas, is the number of women we're losing from the sciences completely.
COVID didn't help that either. I think the amount of workload placed on faculty was extreme in all disciplines, and we're still recovering from that right now. I think it was tough.
Thank you for a very interesting panel and great discussion. So my question is similar to what Mike alluded to earlier, the attrition that we are seeing, that women are leaving the sciences, most of them don't participate, and I have made the similar observation before I joined the Rutgers Innovation Ventures team. I was a scientist first in chemistry and chemical biology, and then in molecular biology and all sorts of life sciences for 13 years. And I saw all around women scientists working in the lab. But to see that there's only 12% of women innovators applying and getting patents at the USPTO is alarming. And is that a question to you, Kimberly? Is that, you think, because women are not trained to assert themselves as inventors when they're working in PI's labs, because the numbers go down from 50% of the biomedical workforce being women, or roughly, to say 20-30%, even maybe lower 20% of women making to the faculty positions. So do you think that's one question, and then I want to follow up on something else.
Yeah, so I do think that it's a cyclic problem, and it does, I think, starts at a very young age. I'm excited to hear that people are working with the Girl Scouts, people are doing lots of K through 12 STEM initiatives. I think that really helps. I think for myself, I remember I was on a team which merged art and technology, a program which I'm not sure they still have now, called Odyssey of the Mind. When I was in high school, I was on a team for that, and it was you had to build, our problem was you had to build a mechatronic thing that could display emotion, and you had to present it in a 7-minute skit, artistic skit. And that was part of the competition. And the other part was a thing called spontaneous, where anything could happen. And I remember when we formed the team, I was great with the mechatronic thing. I was all excited. I've always loved that stuff. And the skit was fun, but this spontaneous was horrifying. And to get over the hump, our team, which was a very gender balanced team, I think we had 3 women and 4 men, we would sit at lunch in school and practice and do just random things. Somebody would give you a random word, you'd have to do word association, or you'd have to solve a puzzle, or you'd have to build something. And boy, we got really good at that. And at the competition, when the competition came around, that was actually our strength. And we actually made it to the world finals, got 3rd place. But that was the strength. And that, again, is something you learn. It's something you learn how to do. And if you're not being asked to do it, you don't learn how to do it. If you're being asked to be perfect and everything, you don't learn it. The mistake making and life going on and nothing bad happening is where you learn how to do it. And so mentors that allow mistake making, I had a graduate student. Most of my female graduate students have all had a point in their career, in their PhD, where they all come into my office and they want to quit. It's a skill I have, how to not make your 3rd-year PhD students quit. They're all great people, but they're worried because they've made something that didn't work perfectly. And we talk and then they get better. So
have to send all those students to Tulane.
This is a skill. Now I try to convince professors women associate professors not to quit, because that's the second part where people get really stressed out.
A couple of real quick things. I know you have a follow-up question. So I coached a 5th grade Odyssey of the Mind team, and we couldn't get out of our own way. So the fact that you get 3rd worlds, I'm in awe. One of my interview questions for final interview for anybody that I interview is, tell me about some place where you failed, and what did you do, and what did you learn from it? And you'd be surprised how many people talk about something one of their colleagues messed up and they fixed. But we just hired a woman for a key role for our organization. She gave me one of the best answers on something where she failed and how she recovered from it, what she learned from it. And this will be more valuable for her than the things that have gone right. But she had the ability to talk about it, process it, and realize that this was not going to be used as a weapon against her.
Thank you. That's really interesting. And
We're going to need to wrap up.
very short question. Maybe I can get their thoughts, all of their thoughts, and it could be very brief, 10 seconds. Do you think individually each of your organizations have any role to play at the high school, even middle school level, because that's where the attrition starts, where girls start dropping out?
If you look at IEEE website, there's volunteer, because IEEE, you got about 400,000 engineering members. And they have, you look for STEM, they have volunteers across the world, mostly in the States, where they volunteer at high schools. Okay, so just check and see if they have something locally where your area is, that's one.
in the first quarter of next year, we're rolling out a near-peer mentoring program for high school students.
We also have a K through 12 STEM office out of my office that touches about 8,000 Louisiana, New Orleans and beyond area K through 8, well K through 12, but we do a lot of work at all ages in STEM.
The answer is definitively yes. We also have an Office of Education and Outreach. We also have our regional offices that are located in Detroit, Denver, Dallas, San Jose, and the headquarters in Alexandria, Virginia, where we go out and work with high school students. We're about to roll out, as part of our Council for Inclusive Innovation, something called the Community Outreach Campaign, where we're going to be empowering our teleworking employees who work across the nation to be grassroots educators in their communities, focusing on high school students.
Perfect, thank you. Elizabeth, if you could just provide, before we end the panel, information about the new report that just came out by the USPTO.
Certainly, I'd be remiss if I didn't. Thank you. We have the Office of our Chief Economist, who has done a great deal of work in this area. Some of you may be familiar with his previous reports called Progress and Potential. There was an initial report, there was a follow-up report. Just this month, though, he and his team, I should say, released a new report focused on women inventors by county. And it reflects a great deal of information as to why some counties have a greater rate of women inventor. To boil it down, some of it comes to larger workforces, areas in which women have greater education. There's a number of factors. Again, it's kind of slicing and dicing the data in a different way to give a different perspective, again, so we can better address the problem head on.
Thank you, and thanks everyone. If you have do you have any parting thoughts that you'd like to leave? Anyone?
I think it's just great to see the diversity in this audience today. Diversity in almost every level. There's a lot of women, there's a lot of underrepresented people, there's a lot of age diversity. I think it's really exciting. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining the panel today. Thank you everyone for participating, and we have the report that I alluded to is available online, and the National Women's Council created a video. You may want to just check out the video, and thanks to everyone for being here today. Thank you.